Right, shalom, fam. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. White Habashad. It's your brother Mathai, acquired first name. IQ is all the same. Welcome to another episode of Feed the Lions, Edification Breakdowns, Blade Runner Edition. Again, continuing on with my portion of the series, dealing with Bible contradictions or issues with the text that may be confusing. Today, we're going to talk about, did David break the Sabbath? Did he break the Sabbath? Um, this account comes from the book of Matthew and the book of Mark, the 12th chapter of Matthew, the second chapter of Mark, where the Pharisees were accusing Yahushua and the disciples of breaking the Sabbath, and they used David as an example, or Yahushua used David as an example of understanding of how they were not breaking the Sabbath. These particular verses are very interesting because I've heard not only Christians, but even some Israelites have utilized these scriptures to justify them breaking the Sabbath or not keeping the laws, in particular the Sabbath, which is a high holy day. And whether it's a misunderstanding or misappropriation of the scriptures or just flat out manipulation, all said parties that use these particular verses to stand behind them breaking and profaning the Sabbath are dead wrong. Let me share my screen and we'll get right to it, y'all. Hit that like button, wipe your feet, all that good stuff. All right. And we'll get to it. First, let's jump into Proverbs, the 8th chapter. We'll start off with Proverbs 8. And we're going to read verse 9. Excuse me. We're going to read verse 8 and verse 9. Now it says, all the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing forward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. So if we search the scriptures, the Most High even said, it's the honor of the Most High, it's the glory of the Most High to conceal a thing. It's the honor of a king to search out a matter. In Proverbs 25, I believe, and 2. Going into this, don't be frustrated if you don't understand certain things in the scripture. That's why you can ask your questions. This is why you got to pray to the Lord for understanding. You pray that the Holy Spirit rests upon you. The spirit of prophecy that comes from Yahweh Shai can come to your rescue to help you understand better rather than frustrate you in not understanding or get bedazzled and bewitched by a Christian or somebody else who's out there perverting the word of the Lord. Remember, all the words of the Most High, or all the words of my mouth, are in righteousness. There is nothing forward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth. See, so the scriptures also say that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and understanding, right? So it comes with the fear of the Most High. Then your understanding is going to come into play. And it says it's going to be right to them that find knowledge. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is trying to find the knowledge. Our people are too busy trying to find the right religious fit, trying to find the right denomination that they want to blend themselves into. Can't do that. Okay. Let me get this other scripture in 2nd Ezra 6. I believe in one verse. Where are we at? Salaki, 2nd Maccabee 6. I'm tripping. And let's pick it up at where is that scripture at? Well, we'll start at 1 and we'll read down very quickly just to get to the point, because just as we're coming off of the Feast of Dedication and closing out that the holy day and the ceremonial day of the Most High, let's just revisit this real quick in the spirit. All right. So verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High. So that sound familiar? So they were utilizing ancient men coming from Athens and Greece and Hellenized Greeks of their people and trying to compel our people to stop following the laws and the commandments. Okay. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus, and that at Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of the strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. Yeah, because if you remember Antiochus, when he initially desecrated the temple, he wanted to reinstitute it as a temple of Zeus and wanted our people to offer swine's flesh on the altar. Okay. Uh, Verse 4 says, "For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places." See, they was having what's known as sacred prostitution going on in the temple, harlotry jumping off, riotous and reveling. They're in there partying, turning up, tearing up the temple. No honor, no respect any at all for anything holy. Right. Continuing on, it says the altar was also filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in that day, uh, and in the day of the king's birth every month, they were brought by the bitter constraint to eat the sacrifices. And when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in a procession, Bacchus carrying ivy. So we're seeing here that the Sabbath day was being promoted to be being broken. Um, our people was, being compelled to break the laws and the commandments of the Most High, and in particular, the fast and the feast days and whatnot. You couldn't even proclaim yourself to be a Jew. So now, if we get back into the understanding regarding, just thinking about it from uh, a perspective of how sacred these laws were. And David, matter of fact, let's get there real quick. David, Acts 13 makes mention of how close the Most High was with David. Acts 13:22, and it says, "And when he had removed him, he raised up unto them David to be their king, to whom also he gave testimony and said, I have found David the son of Jesse, a man after mine own heart, which shall fulfill all my will." So, with that being understood, and if we're taking things logically and understanding truly the type of man of God that David was. Now, David, don't get me wrong, David did commit sin before the Most High, but did he break the Sabbath? Was that part of his sin? Absolutely not. Now it says that David was a man after the mind, after the own heart of the Most High. And if we're seeing what our people went through, we're being forcibly restricted from keeping the Sabbath. Why in the hell would David voluntarily do it, knowing that this was a legacy of maintaining the laws and the commandments for the Most High? Right. Let's get to the verses that are in question. Let's go to Mark chapter 2. We're going to get right to the point. This ain't going to take too long. Mark chapter 2, verse 25. "And he said unto them, Have ye heard, Salaki, have ye never read what David did when he had need and was a hungered, he and they that were with him? He went into the house of the Most High in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath." So in Mark's account, Mark is acknowledging the encounter that Yahushua had with the Pharisees, and they were accusing the disciples of breaking the Sabbath because they plucked some ears of corn on the Sabbath so that they could eat. And they said, well, look, they're over there breaking the Sabbath because they're laboring. They're committing sin by working on the Sabbath, plucking those ears of corn to feed their bellies. Now let's look at let's look at Matthew's account. We're going to read it from the top. We'll read down, okay, down to 8. Because, like I said, I've even heard Israelites say, man, that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So I can do what I need to do on the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for me to be able to occupy what's necessary for me to do on that day. The Christians, obviously, they're running with a similar narrative, right? Look at this, Matthew 12:1. It says, and at that time, Yahushua went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and the disciples were hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. But he said unto them, have ye not read what David did when he was hungered, and they that were with him, which he entered into the house of the Most High, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests. So Yahushua came back with the script and cut him and said, well, hold on. Do you remember when David went into the temple and talked with Ahimelech and Abiathar and told them that they needed to eat, and they ate of the showbread and they wasn't supposed to? Were they wrong? And now the Pharisees are scratching their head saying, uh-oh, he might have us on something. Okay. Because it says, neither was it for them which were with him, but only for the priests. Yeah, because the priests were supposed to be the ones who consumed the showbread after it had been put on the altar for the week of the Sabbath. Now look at this. It says, or have you not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? What do they mean by it? That the priests are profane the Sabbath and they're found blameless. Let's look at Numbers. So Yahushua would seemingly be saying that the priests were breaking the Sabbath all the time, and they were allowed to, and were found blameless. So now this is where you get people saying, well, hey, Christ said that the priests were profaning the Sabbath and they were found blameless. I can do what I want to do too. Now, hold on. Numbers 28. Let's read verse 9 and we'll read verse 10. It says, on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot and 2 tenths deal of flour for a meat offering mingled with oil and the drink offering thereof. These were the Sabbath offerings that had to be taken care of every Sabbath. It says, this is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, besides the continual burnt offering and his drink. Now, the question remains, now, if we're just looking at it as a blanket statement to say, well, the priests profane the Sabbath and were found blameless, how were they profaning the Sabbath? Well, one thing is we're not allowed to cook, right? There should be no burning and cooking of meat and anything on the Sabbath. But why were the priests found blameless? Because these were necessity sacrifices that were sanctioned by the Most High. This is why the priests were set apart as men of the Lord. Remember, Lord Yah, meaning joined unto me, Levi in the English. They were set apart in order to perform tasks of the temple that the rest of Israel was not allowed to do. So the priests were given a pass so that they can fulfill the will of the Most High. Okay. That's one way that you can see it. Also, when you're looking at the account that Yahushua is even talking about them profaning the Sabbath and being found blameless, is technically the priests were not supposed to give David the showbread to eat, but we're going to see why they were found blameless when they did that. We're going to see that in a minute. Let's also look at verse 1, because the whole initial conversation was surrounded around the plucking of the ears of the corn. Okay. Going back to Matthew 12:1. And at that time, Yahushua went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were hungered and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw, they said unto him, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath day. So they were accusing them of doing labor and breaking the laws of the Sabbath. So let's get to the law. Leviticus 23. And let's look at verse 24 and 25. Okay. So it says, when thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put in any vessel. So the law says that it was okay. And this is how we shared, and this is how we created a nation state of grace, mercy, charity amongst each other. So if your neighbor had lemon trees, pomegranates, apples, whatever the case may be, a plethora of food there, the Lord said that it was okay. He says, when thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes thy fill at thine own pleasure. So it says that you can eat of that vine, but you can't collect. You understand? But thou shalt not put it in thy vessel, meaning we were not allowed to go into our neighbors' vineyards and their pastures of vegetation and start plucking and taking and throwing them in vessels and baskets and bags and leaving. No, it says if you're hungry, your neighbor got some food, pluck you something to eat and you're okay. Eat it and be on your way. Your neighbor's not going to trip. And vice versa. If you got it and one of your neighbors is a hungered and they say, hey, you know what, you mind if I grab one of those peaches? Yeah, go ahead. You got it. But if you say, yeah, you're eating one, you go back in the house and here they are plucking, 15, 20 of them, dumping them in a bag. No, that's wrong. Right? Verse 25, it says, when thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thy hands. So this is what we seen the disciples doing. But what was the Pharisees doing? Look, they plucking on the Sabbath, and that's lawful. Nothing wrong with that. Here's the problem, though. This is what they were accusing them of doing. It says, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor standing corn. When you take the sickle out, that's indicative of labor. That's indicative of you collecting massive amounts of fruit, corn, whatever the case may be, into baskets to take with you. That's when it was unlawful, right? But Yahweh Shai didn't even cut him going back to the law with that. He was acknowledging, well, hold on, there's a whole nother instance where we can see that there was an instance of an individual being hungry and then being sustained on the Sabbath day by getting something that wasn't supposed to be given to them or that wasn't of their own. And he's speaking about the matter of David. Okay, so let's read that and we'll look at it. So verse 1, it says, then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. And Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David and said unto him, why art thou alone and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, the king hath commanded me a business. And he said unto me, let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee. And I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. Verse 3. So this is David, he's on the run from Saul. He's being wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Ahimelech is still under the authority of Saul. He doesn't want Saul to know where he's at, so he's utilizing some wisdom. He's saying, I'm on the king's business, right? Me and my men, they're over here. They're having us go around to such and such place, but we're hungry. All right, let's continue. It says, now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or what there is present. And the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves from women. So the priest answers, he says, well, look, I don't have anything common here. This ain't your regular bread, man. This is not, Wonder Bread. This ain't, whatever bread you're used to. This is hallowed bread here, the showbread. All right. Let's get that out the scriptures real quick too. Exodus 25. And let's look at verse 30. So you can see here regarding the showbread. And we'll read down. It says, thou shalt make a table of shittim wood, 2 cubits shall be the length thereof, and a cubit the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height thereof. And thou shalt overlay with pure gold, and make thereto a crown in gold round about it. And thou shalt make a border of an handbreadth round about, and thou shalt make a golden crown to the border thereof round about. And thou shalt make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings in the 4 corners that are on the 4 feet thereof. Over against the table, over against the border shall the rings be for the places of the staves to bear the table. Let's just get down to the point, because they're just talking about the construction of the table. But verse 30 is what goes on the table, right? And thou shalt set upon the table showbread before me. How long? Always. So showbread was supposed to always be on the table, right? That was a perpetual thing. Now let's see this in Leviticus 25. Get out the way. Leviticus 25, and let's read, we're going to read verse 5, and we'll read down to verse 9. Is that what I want? No, Shalaki. I want to. That one, Leviticus 24. Yeah, Leviticus 24. Leviticus 24 and 5. It says, and thou shalt take fine flour and bake 12 cakes thereof. 2 tenths deal shall be in 1 cake. And thou shalt set them in 2 rows, 6 on a row upon the pure table before Yahweh. And thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, even an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. So this is interesting. We see 12 loaves, and in the spirit, each loaf represented each tribe. This is why when the Canaanite woman came up to Christ and was asking for healing, and Yahweh Shah said, it's unlawful for me to, what he's saying? I'm trying to remember that, Matthew 15:24, where he said that, see, this is why I'm drawing a blank. Y'all know what I'm talking about, but brother's memory just flipped real quick. But I want to just get to the lowest part. Matthew 15:24. The disciples told her, Lord, get her away from us, man. We don't want to deal with this damn heathen. So what? She's grievously vexed with the devil and got issues. Yahweh told, he said, but he answered and said unto him, but he answered and said, Salakia, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread. Those 12 loaves is only for the children. The 12 tribes is that bread. That salvation, that healing, everything was meant for us. And cast it to the dogs, right? Called her a dog, and then she said, yeah, truth, Lord. But but she said, yeah, truth, Lord. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from the master's table. So, if the loaf is the full healing, assistance, and power of Yahweh Shai on our side, salvation, imagine, and if the crumbs will heal the heathen, imagine what we're inheriting. That's a whole nother thing, right? But to stay on track, let me get back to Leviticus 24 and 6. It says, and thou shalt set them in 2 rows, 6 on a row upon the pure table before Yahweh. And thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, even an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before Yahweh continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. So we see right there, right? And then we'll read verse 9. It says, and it shall be Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in the holy place, for it is most holy unto him of the offerings of Yahweh made by fire by a perpetual statute. So we see that the showbread, 12 loaves was to be made. They line them up in 6 rows each. They constantly had to be there each Sabbath. And every Sabbath after the offerings was made, when the Sabbath was closed, the priest, Aaron and his sons, were to eat it. That was their food. That was their portion. Because if you remember, the Levites didn't have an inheritance. So they were allowed, okay, to eat it after it was done. Now, let's get back to David. 1 Samuel 21, verse 4. And the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves from women. So he said, well, look, we do have some bread, but your men can't partake if they found themselves involved with women. Why do they say that? Let's look at Exodus 19 and verse we'll just start at 14 and 15, just getting right to the point. This is Moses coming back down from Mount Sinai to deliver the laws and understanding to the people. And he was letting them know that the Most High was going to come the next day, or 3 days later, I believe, to visit the children of Israel, signs and wonders, the whole nine, right? But he had to prep them and make sure that they were prepared and ready. But look at Exodus 19. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified, what's that mean? Cleansed the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day, come not at your wives. Why? Because according to Leviticus 15, if a man lays with his wife and seed comes out of him, he's unclean for that day until sundown. So this is why with a visitation coming from the Most High, and everything needed to be sanctified, cleansed, and holy. So when you're in the temple, conducting services with the altar, the offerings, the showbread, the candlestick, everything, nothing could be defiled. Nothing could be touched by an unclean person. So this is why, even with Moses telling the men, hey, leave your wives alone for these next few days, because we're getting ready to be surrounded by holiness. So the same with the priest. He said, well, I've got hallowed bread only if your young men are clean and have kept themselves from women. Verse 5, it says, and David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us these 3 days, since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. So David was acknowledging, he said, well, look, yeah, my man, we've been on this journey. We've been kept from women for the past 3 days. Trust me, brothers is all clean. Okay. And what happened? So the priest gave him hollow bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Most High Yahweh, to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. So what do we see here? The bread that was given to David and his men was the old bread. Remember, it had to be exchanged out continually every Sabbath. So the old bread was getting ready to be removed. That was the bread that was, supposed to go to the priest after the Sabbath was over. They were supposed to replace it with what? Fresh, hot bread. So David and his men, they received the old bread, right? And look, they only asked for 5 loaves of the 12. So there was still 7 left over for the priest to partake in. Right? So they asked for 5 loaves and they said, okay, we'll give you the old bread because we're getting ready to replace it for fresh hot bread for the next Sabbath. All right. So with that being understood, how was David in the wrong? Did he still keep the Sabbath? Absolutely, he did. Did he receive holy bread that was given to him with the condition of, as long as they were clean, and it was the old bread, it wasn't the fresh bread, the fresh offering, it was the leftovers that was to be eaten by the priest anyway? Yeah, that was fine. This is why Yahweh Shah told him, he said, well, look, if men are hungry, the law says that we can pluck from our neighbors' vineyards to eat. Nothing wrong with that. As long as we're not gleaning and breaking out sickles and chopping them down and bagging up. He said, well, look, even David ate the showbread that was hollow, but it wasn't the fresh one. See, this is from David. He said, through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way. See? This is how we know that David was maintaining himself in righteousness. Look at verse 98. Though through thy commandments has made me wiser than my enemies, for they are forever with me. What? The commandments are. And they've made him wiser. So how would David be breaking the law? David broke the Sabbath. He ate the showbread. No. David was well within his rights within the law, and the priest didn't break the laws by helping him. Okay. Romans 11:8. It says, according as it is written, the Most High had given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. See, that's what ends up happening for those who decide to say, well, looking for reasons to defile, profane, and take advantage of the Sabbath. Yeah, your eyes is closed. You're slumbering. So no, you cannot use that as a scripture to say David broke the law. Christ even said it. You understand what I'm saying? No. Everything is understood, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, to bring in the complete understanding. All right. And this is one other thing too, because you read in Matthew or in Mark, it said Abiathar. How come in Samuel it said Ahimelech? See, there it goes. No, there it doesn't go. All right. Let's look here. 1 Samuel 22:19. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings and oxen, and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. So when you're looking at the scriptures and it says that it was Ahimelech, they were talking about the priesthood under Ahimelech, so his sons. So Abiathar was the priest after his father Ahimelech. All right. So hopefully that gave some understanding, man, and there isn't any confusion regarding that verse. No, David didn't break the Sabbath. That is not an excuse for a brother or a sister to utilize the verses of Mark 2 and 25 down to 26 or Matthew 12:1 and 7 to say that now we're the lords of the Sabbath. The Sabbath does not constrain us any longer. We're allowed to do what we want to do. The Sabbath was made for me to be able to do what I need to do. And no. We still are under ordinances. We're still under the commandments that we need to follow and keep the Sabbath holy. Okay. So with that being said, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh Shai. Till the next time, shalom.